Hi there, that's right, Nick back on the camera again. I just wanted to quickly tell you how things are progressing so far with the potential alcohol distillation for fuel. I wanted to quickly correct myself. It was actually not Stephen Harris but David Balme who wrote Alcohol is a Gas. Alcohol can be a gas, and David Balme is a member of the International Institute for Ecological Agriculture, and so just wanted to clear that up. Now, as far as my particular project is concerned, I've just registered with a business account with a cash and carry, so essentially I can cut down the cost of sugar by between 10 and 20% depending upon the quantity, quality and type that I buy, by comparison with what I've been getting from retailers so far. And this is after a bit of extra research. There may still yet be other ways of getting the sugar cheaper, because if you think about it, you can be off grid through buying in coal, okay, which is buying solid fuel into your house and then of course burning it and using it for your own domestic purposes. With production of ethanol, you're doing something similar, but the hydrocarbon which you're buying into the house is in fact sugar. Are you with me so far? Okay, the sugar is taking the role of coal, basically, as your hard solid goods. It's only when you start building up business relationships with people who've got waste stuff to get rid of that you're actually sort of using up waste in a more productive way. With my current still, I have to think about the full process. Experimenting with just 4 liters at a time was rubbish. Okay, what you have to do is to get through, let's say, the 5 gallons which I've currently got fermenting, and do 1 gallon at a time, and then take what's come off each run and put all the first run stuff together into one, let's say 4 or 8 liter quantity, and then run that through. So we could still be talking about more than a day, possibly 2 days worth of work, if you think about it, to go through the process of getting all of the first runs from your 5 gallons together into one large quantity, and then running your first runs through to make sure you get to the second run quantity, which will be the higher percentage alcohol that you would need for combustion. So with the current countertop still, sure, it's convenient, it's something you can have in your home, you can have it on your counter literally, okay, but is it necessarily convenient for the work at hand? In which case the answer might probably be no, and one would have to upgrade to a bigger, better variety of still if one's going to make it in a more structured manner as part of your general routine. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. As far as the yeast is concerned, the stuff I've got fermenting now, this is the first bit of fermentation I've done for years and years and years, so do forgive me, I have made a few mistakes in terms of preparing the yeast and so on and so forth, but I still think it'll be quite productive because the smell in the air has changed, the level of sediment has changed as well, so all of the undissolved sugars have sort of ended up getting dissolved, and the yeast has been attacking it very nicely, so essentially the sediment at the bottom of the barrel has been going down substantially, and it's also like softer and proper. I've stirred it twice during the fermentation process, and the whole fermentation process should be completed by Wednesday. Do also be aware that I am not, and I repeat, not doing this for the purposes of creating some petroleum substitutes. Well, not at this stage anyway, okay? I'm doing it so I can have something to heat my flat. I'm doing it so I can have something to cook food with and prepare and make hot water. That's essentially it. As far as energy efficiency is concerned, some people say things like, well, wait a second, why don't you just use the energy which you're using to run the still and use that to heat your house? Well, quite simply because this still is working on, what, 750 watts. Okay, you can't get a 750 watt heater which will heat your entire flat in the dead of the night. But if the alcohol you can get as a result of using the 750 watt still alright, could then heat your entire house for a day, then essentially you'll still be on a winning streak. So the extra energy is of course that which you are buying in or bringing in the form of sugar. So if you think about it like that, you know, when you're buying the sugar, you're actually buying like coal, alright? Your sugar is the equivalent of coal. It's a solid fuel you're bringing in, but you're going to change it through a biological process called fermentation, so that you can get something else out of it. Obviously the use of the turbo yeast is going to help, because that tolerates a much higher alcohol level, that can take much more goodness out of the sugar, and so on and so forth. I've got a 24-hour yeast standing by, so the moment that this run has been done and I've put all this stuff through first runs, I will then be able to create another wash, which I'll then, you know, let's take 24 hours to go through, and we can do more fermentation to steadily build up reserves of ethanol alcohol. So it is exciting, but it's also rather daunting as well, if we consider how much work has got to be done to get this up and running. The legal maximum number of litres you can produce in a year is 2,500 here in the UK, without being registered and without having a license and all the rest of it. Reaching that level with a countertop still, if you have to work and live at the same time, would probably be impossible. Okay, unless of course you just want to make a couple of litres at the weekend and just see that as being your hobby, and during the spring, summer and autumn you're storing up enough alcohol, you know, in ethanol form, so that when the winter comes, then you've got extra heating, and you just don't do anything to heat your flat during spring, summer and autumn. But on the other hand, you'll still have like water heating to think about, you'll still have cooking to think about, unless of course you only use wood gas stoves and rocket stoves during that time. But on the other hand, what would you do if it was raining and you'd have to cook on the you know, inside? There's still wrinkles to be ironed out. That does not faze me in the least, because the day when you started walking for the first time ever, you weren't running like an athlete. Okay, you fell down on your backside, you made mistakes, you bruised your knee or you grazed yourself or whatever it was, okay, until you got mastery over the skill, and so on and so forth. Learning off-grid living is going to be the same. And I'm doing this honestly with you. I'm not turning around and saying, oh, this is wonderful, you know, being the promoter. I'm being the promoter in a rational way, telling you the good things and the bad things. If you wanted to do alcohol distillation at home, I would recommend that you build or buy a big still. Okay? One of the disadvantages of the T500 or Turbo 500 still, which I'd linked to in a previous video, is because of that one rests upon or relies upon a water supply, a regular water supply. In an off-grid setting, you might struggle with that. So building something which has air cooling fans, just like that little air still, could be good. But it would have to be bigger, the coils would have to be a lot longer, okay? You'd have to be able to take much more in the way of initial mash. And it would be quite a challenge to make. But it would have to be done if you're going to take alcohol reasonably seriously. I still think it can be done, even if it's just like a home producer level like what I'm doing. It's just a question of ironing out the wrinkles now. Okay? Links below, as is traditional. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.